We are live from MetLife Stadium, the Giants draft party. I am your host, Art Stapleton. I've got John Schmelk, Giants Huddle Podcast, Giants pre- and post-game radio, and draft guru. Schmelk, thanks for joining me.
Happy to be here, Art.
Everyone watching on the North Jersey YouTube page, thank you for watching. And we'll have an audio podcast out later. But let's get right into it. We've got a Giants guest coming up soon. Bobby Okereke is supposed to join us. He's here. We'll catch up with Bobby for about 5-6 minutes and let him go on his way tonight. John, let's dive into it. Giants at 6. A lot of speculation, a lot of reporting being done over the last 2 days. Your gut feeling now, we are about 2 hours from the start of the draft and about 3 hours from when the Giants are supposed to go on at number 6. What are you feeling as far as what's going on right now?
Well, I think the frustrating thing for Giant fans is the Giants could want to make a move here. They might have a player on they want to get, and they could offer everything under the sun, including the stadium that we're sitting in right now. And it's completely out of their control whether the team that's sitting above them is going to take that deal.
Yeah, that's 100% true. Now, the latest I've been hearing, obviously the Patriots, to me, my gut tells me if the Patriots were dead set on taking Drake May, you wouldn't have seen all those reports from New England, Tom Curran, Mike Reese, that, the Patriots are going to take Drake May, but they're open to the Godfather offer of making us an offer you can't refuse. The Bears aren't taking offers for Caleb Williams. That's not happening. So what I think is when the Patriots are on the clock, as long as the first 2 picks go, Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels to Washington, I think that's when you're going to talk about Elliott Wolf and Joe Shane being on the phone. Now, I'm sure Elliott Wolf will be with Kwesi up in Minnesota on the phone as well, talking about Drake May. But I think that's when you're going to get Joe Shane's best deal, and I think what you're looking at is the 2025 first-round pick.
Has to start there.
Has to start with number 6, probably the second rounder this year, and then the first rounder next year, and that's the start. And will the Patriots want to squeeze more out of the Giants? And that's really, I think, where we're at right now.
See, I think the internal dynamics of the Patriots, Art, is what's really interesting to me here, right? Because Elliott Wolf might be playing this game to try to get the best offer when they're on the clock, the same way Monty Ossenfort's apparently doing that in Arizona, right? Because he not only has to get a deal that he wants to do, he has to get a deal good enough to convince Robert Kraft to okay the trade.
Yeah.
Because anything you do in an organization involving your franchise quarterback goes through ownership for every single team in the league. John Mara's been very clear. He's going to let Joe Shane do whatever he wants. So he already has the okay, you're good to go. Robert Kraft lived through 15 years of Tom Brady, which was probably the best 15 years of his professional football life.
Yeah.
The last few years, not as good. No. So I think whether or not he can convince him to trade out of a quarterback, which is what you have to assume you're doing, even if you're going to 6, because maybe the Vikings want to move up to 5. Maybe the Broncos want to move up to 4. Who knows? Or the Patriots maybe could figure out a secondary deal, move down to 6, then slide back up a spot or 2 with the Cardinals.
I think that's an interesting dynamic. That if the Patriots, there was all this talk a couple weeks ago. Remember when the video went out with Monty Ossenfort?
Yep.
That the Cardinals actually put out the video because Monty last year, it was the full Monty. It was working this deal to go back, then it was working this deal to move forward. I really think that may happen more and more with the new age general managers. Joe Shane has talked about the comfort level of being on the clock and not being afraid to be able to place those calls and have trust in who you're dealing with.
Well, that's the trick, right? Does Elliott Wolf have a good enough relationship with Monty Ossenfort, with Joe Ortiz in LA, which would be the 2 guys you're dealing with in that situation, to have an agreement that's not firm, but you have a verbal handshake, right, whatever you want to phrase it, that they're have the trust factor that that's going to get done. Because if you tell the owner, yeah, we have this all set up to get the 4th quarterback, and then it falls apart, guess what? Elliott Wolf's not officially the general manager, and he's not going to be if that's what happens. So it is a very interesting dynamic with what the Patriots are thinking and how they're approaching this in terms of how secure they want to be in the quarterback, how much they think Drake May is different than J.J. McCarthy on their board.
Right.
We don't know the answer to any of those questions. We don't know what the Giants think of Drake May versus J.J. McCarthy either. These are things that we don't know, that only people in the building know when it comes to making these decisions.
Now, if you check out my stories on NorthJersey.com this week, we all know what happened 20 years ago, right? I mean, it was not here. It was at the theater at Madison Square Garden. And, Ernie Accorsi was the general manager, and they convinced Wellington Mara that they needed to go for a franchise quarterback. But I remember talking to Ernie, and you have too, and we all have. Ernie loves to talk. In the past, just the idea of how that trade came to be. The idea that it was 7 minutes left on the clock when the Giants were on the clock, and he finally got a call back from A.J. Smith of the Chargers that said, okay, let's get ready to make something happen here. The Giants didn't know. I mean, Ernie, one of the best nuggets I got this week was the fact that Ernie Accorsi told the Giants representative at the theater in Madison Square Garden to write Ben Roethlisberger's name on the card that was going to get handed into the league.
Because that was the Giants' second choice at quarterback.
Absolutely.
After Eli.
And
right.
People kind of forget that. I mean, we've told the stories, but for younger fans who weren't around, following the team that closely back then, you didn't have social media back in 2004. And the reality is that the Giants were going to take Ben Roethlisberger if they could not swing the deal for Eli Manning. And they ended up picking Phillip Rivers because Ernie Accorsi basically was at the 11th hour and he felt like, we're close enough where we're going to take the chance. They didn't have a deal. They essentially had A.J. Smith on his word that he was going to pull the trigger and make that deal. The NFL's different now. Now if the Giants and the Patriots make a deal, or the Patriots make a deal with anyone, the deal gets announced first, and then the team goes on the clock. Right. It wasn't that way back then. Eli Manning had a parade around with a Chargers hat, and I had a fun story with Dylan Sherwin, who was the young fan that informed Eli that he was actually traded from the Chargers to the Giants that day, and he is now 31 years old and a Jets fan, but he's still an Eli Manning fan. If you haven't seen that story, check it out on NorthJersey.com. So,
and I think the second part of this thing that's interesting, right? If we push the quarterback thing aside, we'll see if they get him or not, right? If they're able to trade up. If they can't, then what happens? Because I think that's another additional interesting thing.
Exactly.
There's the concept of potentially trading back, which I think is unlikely, but you never know. Apparently, teams are really trying to move up into the top 10 to get some of these players. I don't think the Giants would want to trade away from one of these top 4 offensive weapons. I'll include Brock Bowers in that conversation with the top 3 receivers. And there's a scenario here where there could be no receivers off the board when the Giants pick at 5. If the Cardinals trade out, Vikings pick McCarthy at 4, Chargers pick Joe Alt at 5, you can get any one of the 3 receivers. There's also a scenario where the Cardinals stick and pick Harrison, the Chargers stick and pick Neighbors, and then you only have one guy left in a Dunze. Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways this can go, but I think you have to feel pretty secure that if you're the Giants that if you just sit and pick, you're going to get one of those top 3 receivers. I don't know how the Giants have them graded out. For me, they're all very, very close. They're all top 8 players for me in this year's class. So I don't think that's a can't-lose situation if you're a Giant fan. Every one of those wide receivers could be the number 1 wide receiver or a top 10 pick in any draft class over the past 10 years.
Yeah, I agree with you. So we'll get into that a little bit. First off, if you're watching now, thanks for joining us on the NorthJersey.com YouTube page. I'm Art Stapleton. This is John Schmelk from the Giants. We are here live at MetLife Stadium for the Giants draft party. Jets are on the other side. It's going to be a wild night for the Giants, mostly because of the uncertainty. And we talked about that at the top, the idea that, maybe they move up to 3, maybe they move up to 4. We don't know how much the Giants like J.J. McCarthy. Do they like J.J. McCarthy enough to move up to 4? Do they want to take a chance? I'm of the opinion that if you're going to take a quarterback and you like a guy, you can't just sit there and wait for him. As Joe Shane said last year, you like a guy, you go and get him. That's what they did with Jalen Hyatt in the 3rd round last year.
If they like him, they'll move for him. They're not just going to sit and wait for him. Correct.
So let's get to the receivers a little bit.
Yep.
I think, the funny thing is, nobody would have thought that Marvin Harrison Jr. would have had an opportunity to be there at 6. I certainly would not have. When you and I were together at the Combine, there's no way I thought that was happening. But there is a scenario, if the Giants are out of the quarterback mix, and it goes quarterback 1 through 4, at 5, there's a lot of talk about the Chargers wanting an offensive lineman. That is it Latham from Alabama? Is it Joe Alt? What will they do in that spot? And if that happens, all of a sudden Marvin Harrison is sitting there at 6. I would have never anticipated that, but
No.
he's got to be in the top 3 players that the Giants have on their big board. At least I would assume. If you want to say, okay, the quarterbacks, whoever you have ahead of them, but it's pretty crazy that they could be sitting there and have their choice of wide receivers in this class.
Yeah, no, and I'll say this too. I don't think it's out of the question that the Cardinals or Chargers have Neighbors ahead of Marvin Harrison on their board either. Bruce Feldman put out a great article on The Athletic a couple days ago where he talked to NFL coaches, and I think 4 out of the 5 guys had Neighbors as a better wideout than Harrison.
Yeah.
So that's not out of the question either, where, you have a player that is a little bit different than Marvin Harrison. Harrison obviously has all the pedigree. He's big, he's tall, he's very precise, he's very polished. But Malik Neighbors is a better player with the ball in his hands. He's special in that way. And not many people could bring that juice, and some teams might value that more than your traditional outside X receiver, which I would put Harrison and Odunze into that category. Harrison's a little bit of a better athlete to me, so I'd have him a little bit ahead of Odunze in that list.
It's very interesting because I think Neighbors fits more schematically for this offense, but I think Rome Odunze might appeal to them more in terms of the whole idea of he's a clean prospect, and it doesn't mean that the other two are dirty prospects in any way. But just the idea of Odunze, everybody remembers the story at the Combine. No one else worked out. Odunze worked out. He stayed after for the 3-cone drill. And I think it was pretty genuine. I mean, although if someone told him to do that, to stay after, he kind of made an impression on some people who were trying to judge his work ethic.
He definitely checks every box from an intangible standpoint.
There's no
doubt.
And,
no doubt.
I know some Giants fans have reached out to me, the idea of Michael Penix Jr., the idea of that Washington combo, the idea if the Giants don't get a quarterback early, if they have Penix high enough on their board, how cool would it be to have Rome Odunze and then Michael Penix back at the end of the first round? Well, I'm not sure if that's what they're going to be thinking about, but it would be very interesting. It would make for a cool story if somehow that came to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it depends. I think opinions are all over the place on Michael Penix, right? If you look at the consensus board where, Arif Hassan does a good job compiling about 75 different draft people, and they, put he compiles all of their rankings. He's like the 36th or 37th player. To think of that guy getting picked in the top 10, that's a big leap.
Yeah.
It's a very big leap. And, I agree with you. I think Neighbors fits the prototype of what Brian Dable wants in a wide receiver. But I do think Rome Odunze completes that wide receiver room a little bit more.
Agreed.
You have Wando Robinson inside, who is a little bit of a yak guy, not to the same level as Neighbors athletically with size and speed and all that stuff. You already have Hyatt, the speed guy outside. He can be your vertical threat. But they don't have that big, tall guy that can win with physical play, can contested catch, but is still fast enough to separate enough to get open and make plays to give Daniel Jones a big, reliable target. And I think in terms of completing that room, the analogy I've used, Art, is you have a room, right? You got like a really nice lamp over here. You got a nice vase. You got a nice accent wall. But you're missing that one piece to bring the room together. The big couch you're putting in the middle of the room.
Right.
Odunze's the couch.
Sectional.
He's
right.
What makes everything in the room work.
He's the sectional with the recliner. You can put your drink.
And it
everything
matches everything else they already have in the room. So I think he does match the guys they have, but I do think Neighbors' explosiveness would certainly be something that would appeal to Brian Dable and the types of wide receivers he likes.
It's one of those things where I think back to last year when we were here, and this is the second straight year we've done our live show from the draft party. We're in the mezzanine club now, so if you're a season ticket holder and you're watching, come on by. We're here. We thank some of the fans who already started to gather here. Doors opened at 6. We'll have a fan Q&A in a little bit. We're actually waiting on Bobby Okereke. He'll be here, so we don't want to start bringing guys on before Bobby gets here. We're just going to have him for a couple minutes. Want to kind of get his recollections, his memories from when he was in the draft, 3rd-round pick for Indianapolis. So that should be fun, and we'll get a little snippet. They've been together for about 2 weeks now for the off-season program, so maybe we can get something on Shane Bowen's defense and where they're fitting.
So I got something. Jeremy Fowler from ESPN tweeted this out. Asking around, pretty much clear that much of the top 10 is at least moderately open for business, not a potential trade back. This is how he phrases it. Patriots at 3 open, Cardinals at 4 open, 5 Chargers, 7 11 open. So that means extremely open. Titans willing to listen, soft open. Falcons open, Bears open, and Jets soft open at 10. So,
and you notice who was not included in that list.
It's like the one team that wasn't. Between 3 and 10, every team was mentioned except for the Giants at 6, by the way.
The only way the Giants are open is if the Giants can't move up, and then somehow, they want to get more assets from somebody behind them. Maybe if the 3 wide receivers are all sitting there at 6, like we said, the idea of, okay, well, maybe we can move back to 8 or 9 and still get a Dunzier or Neighbors and be in that situation. But you said something off the top that I think is really important here. I can't see the Giants moving away from an elite player. And there are 3 elite non-quarterbacks in this draft. And it's the 3 receivers. It's Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Rome Odunze. And I can't see the Giants at a position of need. They need that sectional couch in the room to move away from one of those 3 guys. It's a hard sell for me.
I agree.
Unless you're somehow picking up a first-round pick from somebody that is going to move from 13 or 14 that they need to get into the top 10 and they're desperate enough to move in and give you a first-rounder for next year. Because, again, it really comes down to, we know the Giants have done the homework at quarterback. We know Daniel Jones. They want they want Daniel Jones ideally to start the season as their number 1 quarterback. Have whatever rookie they bring in come along slowly, maybe even redshirt for the year, but kind of treat the Giants the way Daniel Jones did when he was a rookie and Eli was here. If the guy is ready to play, he's going to come in. If the team is losing, he's going to come in. If not, they're just going to ride it out with Daniel and then see what they have to do after the season. Now, you and I were talking about this off, so we might as well talk about it now.
Yeah.
The comfort level, because some fans, look, to me, at least the vocal Giants fan base, and I don't know how everyone feels in here, but there is a definite split in terms of fans who believe that Daniel Jones still needs an opportunity with a better offensive line, better weapons to be able to show what he can do. And then there's another segment of the fan base that is done, feels like they need to get another quarterback and get another elite quarterback.
Oh, this is basically Captain America's Civil War in the fan base.
Yeah, I love that, John.
I know you do.
We're just trying to figure out where Ant-Man sides, at this point. But I really think that, they're not going to know until they're told definitively the Patriots are out. That I think they're legitimately, the Giants, to me, Drake May is the guy that they want to trade up for. And I don't know if Drake May is a guy that they can't get, then where does J.J. McCarthy fall in that, in that circle of players that they're considering? Do they want to move up for J.J. McCarthy at 4 or at 5 or at 6? Or is J.J. McCarthy a player that they like, but they just don't like enough ahead of the wide receivers, and they're going to go for the wide receivers?
How about this interesting? What if they get to 6, McCarthy's there, to your point, they don't like him enough at 6, and they get a big offer from the Vikings, and they can get those 2 first-round picks in exchange.
Right.
And in 11, you mentioned the premium players. I would be willing to slide Brock Bowers into that list. I think he's that good of a player. I understand tight end's less valuable than wide receiver, and I would pick the 3 wide receivers ahead of him. But if at 11, maybe if you want to slide back a couple spots maybe,
right,
to assure yourself to get one of these guys, that is the only way to me trading down would be a potential prospect if you can get those 2 picks from the Vikings. But look, to your point, you're right. I don't see them trading away. They know, Brian Daboll knows, Art, that they need a big piece on offense here. Last year, they couldn't score any points. They threw a lot of numbers at the offensive line to try to shore that up to avoid the issue to last year when everyone's hurt and they couldn't get anything done, right? And they lost Saquon Barkley. Darren Waller's up in the air. And now you have to figure out how to score points. And you score points by getting dynamic playmakers.
Yeah, and I think, at this point, it's a tough sell of what they're going to do, but we've got our guest, one of the captains on this team.
We got a dynamic playmaker on defense
there
right
he
here.
is.
All right, what's up, baby?
Bobby Okereke.
What's up, Bobby?
What's up, my guy? You good?
All right.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No problem, man. If you can
Yep.
There you go.
Testing.
Wanted to talk to you first off. Welcome. I know you're here. I'm sure the fans. How about a hand for Bobby Okereke? Outstanding free agent, brought in last year. Really the crown jewel, I think, of this regime right now, Bobby Okereke, and what you were able to do last year. Wanted to take you back a little bit because you know it's draft night. We know you know what it's like to not go on night one.
Yep.
Still become a star in this league. Take us back to your draft experience. What do you remember from your draft experience? What was that like?
I just remember all my family being with me. It was an exciting couple of days leading up to it. Talking to my agent, he was telling me, we expect you to go from rounds 2 to 4. So in my mind, all I heard was 2. But the draft unfolded. Ended up getting drafted in the 3rd round, 89th pick. And when I got that phone call, my whole living room erupted. My family was cheering. Everybody was screaming. I was like, shh, I gotta hear the phone. But it was just a very powerful memory for me and one I very much enjoyed.
So now it was when you were drafted by the Colts, obviously, and then you come here to the Giants. I went back and I watched your draft and the announcement and stuff. People don't realize, I'm sure you remember, he certainly wasn't the media star that he is now or the WWE star, but Pat McAfee, former Pro Bowl punter for the Colts, actually announced your pick. Back then, did you know McAfee at all or what he became and just the idea of now, when you think about it, have you ever had any exchanges with him that he called your name out?
For sure. Knew he was a former player, but yeah, the celebrity he's grown to has been tremendous. He's killing it on podcasts every single day. He dubbed me as the future Hall of Famer.
Yes, he did.
So I got some work to do, but I run into him every Super Bowl, Radio Row, say what's up, pay my respects. Pat's doing great things for Indiana and just broadcasting overall.
So Bobby, you've had back in the building now for a little more than a week.
Yep.
A lot of new faces, both players. You still have your position coach and linebacker, but a new defensive coordinator, and also new strength and conditioning coach, right?
Yep.
So what has it been trying to get back into the groove here with some different things going on around you in the building?
Yeah, it's been amazing. Trying to build on that growth mindset. Important for me. So in year 6, coming in with a new defensive coordinator, coming in with a new strength coach, it's just a whole another onboarding process. I'm not a rookie. I've been through this rodeo. I know the ropes, but it's just kind of new tweaks and new stuff to learn. So that's why I keep myself fresh, stay with the growth mindset, just keep learning because I just want to keep elevating my game.
Talk a little bit about the idea of, this time of year. It's a weird night because the veterans, I don't know how much you guys pay attention to the draft, who we take in. No, it's probably hit or miss, right? There's probably some guys who are really into it, and then there are other guys who are like, all right, we'll see when they show up in 2 weeks, that kind of thing.
Yep.
How do you explain the draft to, people when they wonder about the existing team versus the younger guys that are going to be coming in? Do you watch which guys are coming in? Do you think about guys, okay, how's that guy going to fit in this team?
For sure. We have a lot of trust in our front office. And Joe Shane and Dave's, they're going to make the best decision from a personnel standpoint. And we all embrace it. This is the NFL. The nature of the beast is that you're going to compete every single day. We tell ourselves competition breeds excellence. So we're excited for these new guys to come in, bring some new life, some new energy, and really just add some more competition to the field because that's what's going to make us perform great on Sundays.
When it comes to rookies coming in, Bobby, I think a lot of times, especially for the higher picks, fans expect these guys to hit the ground and starter, boom, Pro Bowl, boom. Can you just explain exactly how hard it is for a rookie to come in and contribute right away?
Yeah, it's very tough. It takes physical, mental, spiritual maturity. When you go to the college game and you're playing, 11, 12 games in a year, and you come to the NFL, you're playing 17 plus playoff games.
And preseason.
It's a lot of wear and tear on your body. You're no longer playing with 17 to 21-year-olds. You're playing with 21-year-olds to 35-year-olds. You're playing with grown men. So for a rookie to come in and, be very productive, it takes a lot of maturity, but just, a kid who's going to come and compete.
Last one for me, and thank you for joining us. If you had to talk to the fans here, talk to the audience, what should they expect? I know it's only been about a week and a half, but what should they expect from the Giants defensively this year?
a lot of physicality, a lot of violence, and guys just flying around. We added Brian Burns. Shane Bowen is a great addition for us as defensive coordinator. Our unit is only stronger and stronger. Obviously, Dex, Kayvon, me, Micah, Deontay, Jason Pinnock. You got guys all over the board, so just expect for a big jump in year 2.
Is the Bowen stuff a little similar to what the stuff you did in Indy? It seems like some of the stuff would be a little bit similar, right?
Yeah, a little similar. I mean, it's not the wink blitz style for sure, but a little similar. Yeah, we're kind of growing in that process, so I'm excited to learn.
Awesome. Bobby Okereke again. Let's give him a round of applause. Thanks for taking the time to come with us. I appreciate it, Bobby.
Yes, sir.
See you in a couple weeks.
Peace.
All right, so Bobby's here. Thanks to Bobby again. Thanks to Ethan from the Giants for making it happen. Appreciate it. And, we got a nice crowd here with the fans. Darnay Holmes also here. Darnay, back.
Hey.
So, John, let's get back to just kind of reset a little bit.
Yeah.
You have to head to your work soon, so we're going to...
Final thoughts here.
I'm going to let you go.
Yes.
Let's go final thoughts,
Yes.
and then I'll start bringing in some fans
Yes.
for some Q&A. You go back to the building. What are you thinking right now in terms of...
What am I going to
you're
have
gonna
for
do?
dinner? That's the first thing on my thought. No, look, I think you go back and you wait. I think we're all waiting. I think the Giants front office is waiting. All the hay's in the barn. To your point, I don't know what trade offers are out there, what they're waiting on, what they still have to do, but you're just waiting for your time to come up. I mean, you've done all the work. I think you're ready to go in and make some picks, and you got to see if you get the phone call you need. You do what you can, and I think it's important to move on emotionally. If you're the front office, if you miss out on an opportunity through no fault of your own, to just quickly move on. And the way I'm viewing this, Art, is that I just find it hard to believe that the Patriots in this situation are going to trade off of a quarterback. That's been my thought since the beginning of this process. And for those of you that have listened to our content, Drake May's my second quarterback in this draft. I think he's great. I also think two things can be true. You can think that Drake May's really good. You could also think that Daniel Jones has been put in a really tough spot. And and last year, it was a really tough situation for him, and I still think he can be a good NFL quarterback. Those two thoughts, believe it or not, can exist at exactly the same time, which some people don't seem to realize. I'll leave with this, because I've said this a million times in our other programming. Whether or not you draft a quarterback here, Art, should have nothing to do with what you think of Daniel Jones.
Yeah,
it should have everything
right.
to do with what you think about the guy you're going to draft. That's what matters. If you think this guy is going to be a Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow level quarterback, you owe it to yourself and the organization to make that move, even if you still think Daniel Jones is a really good quarterback. And remember, 14 months ago, Art, they gave this guy a lot of money. I don't think opinions went 180 on this guy in a span of 14 months. That's not how front office works. So that's the bottom line. If you believe in the quarterback, you go and you get him, and Joe Schoen has basically said as much to us publicly at press conference and such. So I think you wait and you see. You hope the Patriots, or if you're a fan that wants that to happen, you hope the Patriots are cooperative. And if they're not, you just go pick the best player. Just don't go into this draft saying, if they don't get a quarterback, it's a disappointment. Because then that's not the right way to approach these things. That's how you draft bad players. And that's how I hope fans are viewing it that way. Because the Giants, in a lot of ways, do not control their own destiny in this situation. They're a slave to what other teams want to do and what they're going to allow the Giants to do. And you make the best decision you can with your pick at 6 based on the cost of moving up, who's available at 6 when you pick. You make the best pick you can in your particular situation, and knock on wood, you hope it works out.
All right, 2 things from you before you go.
Yes.
1, I want you to tell everyone where they can find you the next 3 days.
Yeah.
And then I want you to give me your pick.
Absolutely. So you can find us live when the Giants make each one of their picks. Tonight, we'll be live on Giants.com, Giants YouTube channel. Same on Friday. Saturday, we'll go live at noon. So make sure you go check that out. We'll also have our usual Big Blue Kickoff Live episodes at 12:30 tomorrow as well. So that's where you can find all the stuff that we're doing. In terms of the pick, Art, look, I've been saying this for a long time. It's just my gut tells me Malik Neighbors. It's what my gut tells me. I think he's the type of wide receiver that this team would like. I think he'll be there at 6, and my gut tells me he'll be the pick. Wouldn't shock me if it was Harrison. Wouldn't shock me if they worked a trade for a QB. Wouldn't shock me if it was a Dunze either. But I'll say Malik Neighbors.
John Schmelk, thanks for joining me. 2nd straight year. Great job, man.
Happy to do it, Art.
Check out John's stuff on Giants.com. All of his podcasts are great. great draft content, and honestly, a lot of people look at in-house content and worry that it's going to be slanted towards the Giants. John is as good as it gets. John does great stuff and does a great job on Giants.com. So let's reset. I'm Art Stapleton. If you're watching, you probably know that already. This is our all-in live episode from the Giants draft party here at MetLife Stadium. We are looking at, it's around 6:36. So draft kicks off at 8. We are going to go probably for another half hour or so. But our next guests, or at least the next segment, we are going to do fan Q&A. Now, we have several people who committed to coming tonight and confirmed with me that they were coming. So I want to make sure to get them first before, but we got time. Everybody's going to get a chance. So who's first up? Bring them on over. How you doing, man?
Good, how are you?
Good. Who are you?
Sanjay Corona.
Sanjay Corona. Sanjay, what's up? Sanjay from Somerset County, right?
That's right.
Giants fan since the 80s. Your first Giants game, you told me a funny story. I want you to tell everybody that.
Yeah, that's actually really what drove me to become a season ticket holder. It was back in Eli's first year against the Denver Broncos here in Giants Stadium. My brother got tickets. It was my first ever live Giants game. We were sitting up in the 300 section in a cold November, I'll say that. And I remember Eli's fourth quarter comeback, one of his first, just connecting with Amani that whole drive. And at the end, when we scored the winning touchdown, I remember just hugging all the fans around me. And right there, I knew it was like, one day when I can afford season tickets, I'm going to get them. And I was able to.
When did you become a season ticket holder?
This is my third season as a season ticket holder.
Third season. So
Yeah.
you got one playoff year.
Yep.
Out of the 3 years. You're hoping for 2, I would imagine.
Let's see what happens.
You have your Eli jersey
Absolutely.
on now. 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yesterday was when the Giants made the trade for Eli Manning. What's your sense going into the draft? What are you thinking? And you have any questions for me about where the team is at?
Yeah, so I really think that depends on what the Patriots do, what you said there. After 3, we'll know what the Giants are going to do, and I really think they're still going to go wide receiver on this pick. I really do. I think my question becomes this. I think everyone took that J.J. McCarthy interview like a bit of a shock yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Do you think in a cynical sense maybe it was a false flag in the sense of like he's telling the Vikings, like, hey guys, if you want me, the Giants are going to take me at 6. You better start calling the Cardinals or the Chargers and start making a deal for me.
That's a very interesting point, and Sanjay, as you know, that happens this time of year. Guys are sending out messages. Here's the one thing I know. It was on the Rich Eisen show. J.J. McCarthy, if you haven't seen the video, really talked glowingly about the Giants. Rich had asked him about which team he thought he was going to go to, and he talked about the Giants.
Yep.
Talked about Coach Dable and Mr. Shane and Coach Shea Tierney, the quarterback's coach, pass game coordinator, Mike Kafka he mentioned. So if you just take that at face value, you'd say, man, he really is connected with the Giants. But I agree with you. It wouldn't surprise me. I think there was a comfort level, though, for him, because Rich Eisen is a Michigan guy, and obviously JJ being from Michigan.
Yep.
It wouldn't surprise me if he just got very comfortable in that setting and just kind of let himself go and was honest and didn't realize he was sending that kind of message. So we'll see, but I do appreciate it. So who's your pick if they go wide receiver?
I think if Marvin Harrison's there, they're definitely going Marvin Harrison Jr. You can't take away from talent like that. A guy's going to be who could change your entire offense just on stretching the field.
I agree with you, but I think if Marvin is going to be there, has to go 4 quarterbacks, and that means the Giants get shut out of the quarterbacks. So it's going to be a little bit of a divide, I think. I mentioned it earlier on the fans and what people are actually expecting at this point.
I think you can't go wrong with any of the 3, though. I think either way they're going to contribute, and I think they're going to help whoever the quarterback is for the season become a better high-scoring offense, as far as I'm concerned.
Awesome. Sanjay, thank you
you.
for coming on. Appreciate it. Let's give a hand to Sanjay. Grab a football, grab a koozie, all in stickers. Thank you for coming on. Do we have anybody else who is committed beforehand? You came? Not Andrew Thomas, but Nice, like the jersey.
A little too small.
Yeah. What's your name?
Jake de Blasio.
Okay, what's up, Jake? How you doing, man?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good, good. Jake is 20 years old, a big-time offensive lineman for Delaware Valley University, Division III, nationally ranked football program. So, you know, you making that bid for right tackle or what?
You know, coming into this process, I was. But we've made so many investments into the O-line this offseason, and not just the guys we signed like Illuminor and Runyon. We also brought in our new coach. So I think that's a huge upgrade, and that's, I think, going to put us over the top on the O-line compared to how it's been in years past. And now we can look to address receiver or quarterback, whatever kind of falls into our lap.
So one thing you told me, and when the guys who committed and said they were coming, I wanted to exchange emails a little bit, get a little background on you guys for when you come on the show. One thing I thought was interesting is you're 20 years old, so you're a Giants fan. You've caught the end of the big time run, back when you really first started rooting for the team, I guess taking it seriously. But as far as the 80s back in Super Bowl 21 and 25, basically a myth for you, right? A legend. I thought what was great is you said, was it your dad who turned you on to LT highlights on YouTube? Tell me what that was all about.
Yeah, I got to give a big shout out to my dad. He's the reason I'm the Giants fan I am today, and everything I have is a credit to him. And I mean, it's a cool story. I got to meet Lawrence Taylor when I was 9 years old.
Wow.
And I remember I broke my iPhone. We went to the mall. We saw a Lawrence Taylor helmet, and I didn't have enough. And my dad made me work for it, doing chores around the house. We go to buy the helmet. We find out he's like 2 weeks later, he's coming in to sign autographs. So we got to meet him. So I got to meet the man, the myth, the legend, and just kind of really learn about that 80s. And all our Super Bowls really come from strong defenses. So I think too, getting to learn the history of this team is really kind of made me change how I think about this team and why we can get back to the Super Bowl runs that we used to have.
You're an interesting age group for this fan base, because I think, like I said, you came right on the heels of Super Bowl 42 and 46. 42. Were you even born? What were you? I'm trying to remember, thinking back.
I was 3 years old.
Yeah, so 42 was basically a YouTube highlight for you.
Yeah.
And then 46, you kind of remember, I would imagine, a little bit.
Yeah, I remember that was a big game for my family because my mom's a Patriots fan. And I just remember the rivalry building up and doing a little bit of trash talking and came out on top. So I remember, I fell asleep before halftime, but I remember a little bit of the game.
So what, are you 8 at
I was
the time?
8, yeah.
That's forgivable. I mean, you'll stay up for tonight to watch the draft.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about, like I mentioned, the age group. I mean, it's a very interesting thing because the Giants fan base was always viewed as, the older fan base, older fans who remember the days of going to Yankee Stadium, and then it was the old Giants Stadium. And then the younger fan base has seen a lot of losing, let's be honest. For you, you're here with an Andrew Thomas jersey. Obviously, one of the best things to happen to this franchise in the last 10 years is the selection of Andrew Thomas. Now he's signed right up until 2029. I mentioned to Bobby Okereke when he was here earlier, he was one of the crown jewels of this regime with Joe Shane and Brian Dable. Well, Andrew Thomas, getting him signed to an extension to be here until 2029, it almost gives the younger fan base one of the players here that you could actually latch on to. But what's your feeling for where this team is right now, and is it frustrating? It's a social media age. It's a lot different than what fans had it when your dad started rooting for the Giants. It's a different world. What's it like being a 20-year-old Giants fan that hasn't seen a bunch of winning?
Obviously, it's tough. I mean, 2022 was a great year for me. I mean, just seeing all that, it made me really happy. And obviously, last year was a down year, but we still have some good, really young pieces, hoping Evan Neal can bounce back with a new offensive line coach. Tay Banks flashed last year. Now he's going to be in a new system. Kayvon hit double-digit sacks. So I really trust Coach Dable. I think seeing what he did in Buffalo with Josh Allen, I have a lot of faith in him and Joe Shane. So it's a little frustrating right now, but I do feel optimistic for the future, which was something I never really felt in the Gettleman era. I always felt like we were going to be stuck where we were. But seeing the new regime, they give me hope.
Which is interesting because, one of the players that Dave Gettleman at least could, take a little bit of credit for is the guy that you're repping right now with your jersey. So understood. I understand that pattern. Hey, look, sometimes general managers get lucky. Sometimes you get lucky, and I've written the idea of how, it's process versus results. If the process is good, the results will ultimately work out at some point. One of the reasons why Joe Schoen is general manager is because the process wasn't great under the last regime and the last coaching staff, and I think that's kind of how it ended up happening. So before we let you go out and enjoy the draft party, it is the draft. Giants are sitting at 6. You mentioned your mom is a Patriots fan. Patriots hold the keys a little bit to some of what the Giants are trying to do here. What do you want to see happen tonight for the Giants in this draft?
Give up whatever they have to get Drake May at 3. That's what I want. I have a feeling they're going to trade up. I know my heart tells me that, but I know deep down it's probably going to be Neighbors or Odunze at 6 when it comes down to it at the end.
Do you have a preference for one of those guys?
I started off a Malik Neighbors fan. I'm starting to transition to Odunze a little bit.
He's winning you over by what he did at the combine, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That 3-cone, and then we mentioned it earlier, the idea that Rome Odunze stayed after his testing was done, and he ran the 3-cone drill again and again because he was unhappy with the time. That was pretty funny. But listen, Jake, thanks for joining me. Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the night, and keep on keeping on. We'll keep listening all in, and we appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Art. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Jake. Jake de Blasio. All right, we're here at the Mezzanine Club, MetLife Stadium. We are sitting at this point, it is 6:47, so we're going to try to hang out a little bit longer. We've got the draft starting off at 8. Appreciate all the fans here, season ticket holders hanging out, listening a little bit of the show. Appreciate everyone who's home, watching on YouTube. My family, give a little hello to my family back home watching the game, watching the show here. I don't know if we have any other fans that confirmed to be here. If anybody's here, we got somebody else here, so come on in and we'll talk about it. How's it going, man?
Michael, nice to meet you.
Michael, nice to meet you too. Michael's here. I gotta go to my notes. Michael, you have an experience and a history in media, hosting radio, right?
Yeah, correct. I was on a sports radio talk program at Centenary University a little while ago at this point, but
Awesome.
It's nice to kind of be back here again.
So how'd you become a Giants fan?
I didn't have any choice. I remember Giants Super Bowl in 2000. My favorite animal at that point was a dolphin. I had a Dolphins jersey. That was the last time that I probably wore that jersey with my grandparents. They put an end to that. Started taking me to Giant games around that same time, and season tickets have been in my family forever, even dating back to the old stadium and everything. So never really had a choice.
Yeah, you know what? And now that I'm looking at the stuff you sent me, I thought it was a great background story. The idea that your grandparents had season tickets for their 3 daughters. I assume one of the daughters was your mom?
It was my mom, yeah.
Yep, so 10 total tickets at the old stadium, and then you end up inheriting, obviously, memories for your grandparents, obviously, condolences for their passing,
Yeah.
and then they pass it on to you. That's got to be a great honor to kind of represent your family as a season ticket holder.
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredible to be able to do cool things like this, get to interact with you, get to go on the field, in the locker room, share not so recently good memories about some of the games that have been played, but experiences that I'll never forget. And it's always been about family, tailgating, and then going to enjoy the game afterwards.
Now, I know you're a big Villanova Knicks fan. I know that you're a big fan of the 3 Villanova guys. Got the game tonight. How are you going to handle this? What are you going to do? I got to imagine they'll put it on a TV somewhere, the Knicks game.
I'm certainly hoping so. It looks like a lot of the TVs are dedicated to the draft right now. Hopefully one of those switches over to MSG or ESPN for the Knicks game tonight. In Philly, it's going to be interesting. The last game was unbelievable, but we'll see what happens. They're not just going to lay over, I don't think, the 76ers. So.
Tell me the story you mentioned about Kerry Collins.
Yeah, so my dad and I were going to one of the games. I was too little to remember which one it was, but we were over where the players were coming into the stadium, and my dad always told me, if you're looking for autographs, things like that, always be respectful. They don't owe you anything, so just hold your football out. If they sign it, great. If not, no big deal. Kerry Collins came in, didn't really sign for anybody. Walked right past me, and I was pretty bummed. I was probably 5 years old at the time, 6 years old, and his wife kind of couldn't hear what they were saying, but started kind of scolding him, and he turned back around and patted me on the head and signed my football, and that's a memory that I'll never forget.
Nice. Well, Kerry's a good dude. Came back for that, and hey, take it from me, and I'm sure always listen to the wife.
Yeah, of course.
No doubt. Last thing before I let you go, draft. What are you thinking tonight? What do you hope they do at number 6?
Well, I know what I hope they do, but I think in reality that doesn't really matter. I think Brian Dable and Joe Shane have to have conviction about whoever they're picking. If it's trading up for Drake May at 3 overall, which we've heard reports of, I think they need to have conviction of it, that's their guy, and they're going to live or die by that pick, and that'll define their history here. So ideally, what I'd like them to do, I think one of the receivers makes a lot of sense. I'm partial to Odunze. I wouldn't mind Neighbors either, or Harrison, but I think Odunze schematically and kind of some of the characteristics that the Giants ownership have looked for in the past. You saw the combine stuff with him staying afterwards.
Yep.
Those are the intangibles that this franchise really seems to love. So.
Well, listen, I really appreciate you coming by. Again, to all the fans who have come by, you got great stories. I love hearing from Giants fans about how they became fans, and especially the different generations of fans, I think is great. So, Michael, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for doing this, Art. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. All right, so we are here. We're coming up on an hour to go before the draft begins. Again, thanks to John Schmelk. Bobby Okereke was here earlier. Darnay Holmes in the audience. All the fans kind of swinging by, hearing some guy talk, saying, "What are they doing over there? What's the deal? What's going on?" So, I think, you have to look at this draft in several ways, and it's kind of in segments. Tonight is his own segment, and what happens tonight will really determine what happens tomorrow and then on Saturday, because the latest I've heard as far as the draft compensation to get up to 3, as we talked about with John Schmelk earlier, was a flip of 3 and 6, and then the second round pick today, and then a future first round pick. That's the starting point for the Patriots to get them to bite, to go up and get Drake May, and I'm not sure if that's going to happen. But we'll have to see. What do I think? I think I make the play if I can do it. I go up and get Drake May. If I don't, then it's going to be very interesting to see what happens at 6. So we'll see what happens. All right, we got another fan. Cool. Hi, how are you? Getting into broadcasting.
Nice to meet you. I'm Carly. Nice to meet you.
Carly?
Yeah.
Where are you from, Carly?
North Caldwell, New Jersey.
Okay, North Caldwell.
Yeah.
How old are you? What year are
I'm
you?
16. I'm going to be a sophomore.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sophomore.
Yeah.
You go to Caldwell High School?
West Essex.
West Essex. Cool. I covered high schools for a long time,
Yeah.
so West Essex was always very good. Very good in football.
I follow you on Twitter, and it's so nice to read all your
Oh,
stuff.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for following me on Twitter. Thanks for being a part of the show. What do you think? What do you think for tonight?
I'm really nervous because I feel like the Giants can either be they could be so unpredictable at some parts. And when you look at Daniel Jones and all that he's done, you see some really good trends with him, and then you can see some really bad trends with him, as we saw last year. And so my problem is that if we draft this star wide receiver, like we had hope that Jalen Hyatt could become a star, but yet we couldn't get him the ball. If we draft a star wide receiver without having that quarterback that can throw them the ball, what's the motivation behind it that we know that this player is going to be a star? That, like, they say Malik Neighbors, he's going to be the next Tyreek Hill, but if he can't get the ball, how are we supposed to show off his talent?
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, it's a chicken and egg thing, right? It's the idea of you want the great quarterback who's going to make everybody better. We all saw what Eli Manning did. You're still on the younger age, but you caught Eli's tail end of his career. The idea of making players better around him when they went and won Super Bowls. He had talent. Do you need the offensive line before you get a quarterback? Do you need the wide receivers before you go get a quarterback? Or do you get the quarterback and then you build around him? It's a great point about, the receivers. I think at this point, it's a tough call. you just have to get the player, right?
Yeah.
You just have to worry about getting the talented player, and then after that, build around that player. And if that player is the wide receiver, if that player is the quarterback, you just have to take the opportunity, because this time last year they were picking at 25. Now they made a great pick. They moved up. I think Ted Banks is a very good pick.
I agree.
But you know, a year later, now you're picking in the top 10. You didn't anticipate that. They don't want to be picking in the top 10 again next year. So that's where it is. You have Kayvon Thibodeau's jersey on. What's your sense for this defense? How excited
I'm
were you?
so excited when they signed Brian Burns, especially to a great deal after Carolina gave up that option with the Rams, and I thought that the Giants executed it very well. And I think that the front line with Dexter Lawrence and Kayvon it's going to be strong. And I think that the Giants struggled with that last year. Kayvon has so much talent, yet I would always watch and I'd be like, is he going to go sack the quarterback? And he couldn't get there. And I like how they're building this defensive line to be stronger to get to the quarterback.
Now, tell me about this, because you know, even 5 years ago, the idea of you're a young woman, you want to be in this business. You know, I'm sure people, you know, if it's 10, 15 years ago, didn't have someone to look at, didn't see football, you know, as a game that could be for women. Now the Giants have 2 female coaches. They have females all over this department, in the football department, and all over the organization. What does that mean to you? You know, we hear people talk about that, but what does that influence mean to you as you're trying to, you know, really advance yourself and be a part of this game?
So that's something really that I'm passionate about how, it's a very football's a male-generated sport, and how there's getting more and more girls involved. And I think that's a great thing, because I started coming to the Giants games when I was little, and I've become this huge fan. And I think that it's important that, I always say to the boys at school, what do you think about the draft? Yet no one really cares about my opinion. So seeing that females are getting more and more involved in this league is super important to me, because it just shows that there's leaders and there's mentors for me as I continue to aspire to become a reporter and become a part of this job.
That's awesome. Well, listen, the Giants have a great female reporter as well, Madeline Burke. I don't know if you've ever met her, but she's great. She's accessible. I would reach out to her.
Yeah.
If not, you follow me. Reach out to me. If you haven't, I'll try to hook you up with Madeline. And, you know, we'll talk. But thanks for coming on. Carly, everybody.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Great job. You know, the future generation of fans, you know, I know my daughter loves the Giants. Our producer, Paul Wood, his daughter loves the Giants, although I think she's a little angry with the Giants right now. Paul's daughter, after Saquon ends up leaving and going to Philly, that's pretty. Has Emma gotten over Saquon going to Philly or no?
Who changed the dog's name?
The dog's name has changed from Barkley.
Yes.
What?
Middle name, Thor.
Thor? Is that for Syndergaard or? Well, you know, it's an interesting transition year for the Giants to not have Saquon Barkley here. Xavier McKinney's not here, but I think, you know, they're moving in a direction that, you know, it seems to me that the fans are happy. But tonight, I don't know what makes every fan happy tonight. It's a tough call. I think maybe Marvin Harrison Jr., if he's at 6, that the Giants, if they take him there, maybe most fans will be. But we're going to bring in another fan here. This is a repeat guest from last year. And the Giants Sing joined us last year, and he's back again this year.
How's it going, Art?
How are you? What's going on?
Not much.
Jazz Meat, you were great last year. We had a lot of fun. You had some good questions. So what's on your mind now we're going into tonight?
Everyone's talking about we need a new quarterback, right? But what I think is we actually need a stud wide receiver.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't know where we're going to get it or how we're going to get it, but we have to get at least a wide receiver 1 to try, you know? Because we haven't had one in a decade. Since OBJ left, you name a wide receiver that has actually stepped up. Or we found one.
Talk a little into the mic.
Or we found one
There you go.
that has actually stepped up and be a wide receiver 1.
Right.
So I always see there's always a gap there. So we should go and get wide receiver 1 who can rock the stadium.
Well, you got 3 wide receivers there in the top 10 at this point. Will be interesting to see if the Giants stay at 6. Do you have a favorite out of the 3?
Malik Neighbors.
Malik Neighbors. Why? What do you like about Neighbors' game?
It's just he's explosive. He just reminds me of OBJ. That's
Wow.
it. He's tall. Yeah, he can catch the ball. But like I was having the same conversation with one of my other friends at the tailgate party, and he was like, if we find a wide receiver, then do we need a person to actually throw it to him? I'm like, yeah, but at least we can try, you know?
Right.
I mean, Daniel Jones it's a very difficult situation with him. Like, you know, especially with his injuries now piling up. Not even one. He had 3 injuries, right? 3. I think 3 or 4 injuries, right? That he has had for the last couple of years. So him being a long-term quarterback is probably not an answer. So yes, we do need a quarterback, but before that, we actually need a wide receiver.
Well, you know, it'll be interesting to see what they do. We do appreciate it. All of a sudden, they decided to turn the volume up, so it's the best we could do. So we apologize for everyone who's watching at YouTube, for people in here who might not be able to hear us. Try to talk as loud as we can. So, you know, you last year, you added to the family last year after, right? After the draft party, right? Last summer? Or was it newborn last summer, right?
Yes. No.
I thought you did.
It was last summer. Yes,
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
So
I
he's
remember,
turning.
see?
No, you're right.
Turn what?
I blacked out. He's turning 1 in
I
next.
should know your family better than you do. Come on.
I'm sorry. He's actually turning 1 on 17th of May
Gotcha.
next month. So
Awesome.
15 more days, yeah.
Happy birthday to your son, and
Thank you.
obviously, you know, you're a great fan. It's always great to see you.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming by. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yep, definitely.
The Giants sing.
Always good
everybody.
seeing.
All right, I think we got the message, right? That we're probably should wrap it up soon. Everybody's going to try to get ready. The Knicks are on. Who's gonna try to take a peek at the Knicks at this point? Go Knicks! I know Paul Wood, my producer, is here, but I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Unfortunately, we got the sound now, so work in progress. We're always trying to bring the show to you, the fans. We appreciate the audience. Make sure you check out all my coverage on NorthJersey.com all week, all weekend, always. Check out on social media, Art_Stapleton, if you haven't checked me out on X, and obviously the All In podcast. Make sure you watch some of our shows on YouTube. Trying to make a push on video, and that's it. So thanks to, before we get out, I want to thank Carrie, Sydney, and Maggie from the Giants for all the help today. Bobby Okereke, John Schmelk, for our NorthJersey.com crew here. Thank you for joining us, and you can catch a replay of this show. Audio will be up. You can watch it on YouTube for anybody who was on. But my pick tonight, before I lose my voice already, I think the Giants are pulling off a trade. I think Joe Shane's going to do what he's got to do. I think it may cost you the 2025 first rounder, but I do think that they are going to do whatever they can to be aggressive, get up to 3 with the Patriots, and I think Drake May is going to be the pick for the Giants tonight. That's my pick. Am I going to be right? I'm not sure, but I do know that I nailed Tay Banks' pick last year at the draft party. Maybe we can go for 2 for 2. So for everybody here for NorthJersey.com, I'm Art Stapleton. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Everyone, thanks for being here watching the show, and we'll catch you soon. We'll have some reaction podcasts over the weekend.